Should the Boston Celtics be more afraid of the Knicks now that they have Karl-Anthony Towns? It's complicated. Let's get into it right now on the Locked On Celtics podcast.
Thanks to Blockbuster Brand, it's holiday season. Drop Drew in the mix, and 3 from KP. No, we not on the Knicks. Flushing competition like Al on Giannis. Juice and Big Juice, still Beantown's finest. Banner 18 going up in the rafters. Watch the C's game in Locked On after. Corrales on the breakdown. Clutch like a tip from D. White on the breakdown. John on the mic documenting domination. Matter pen a back bay, it's all C's nation. Rain and J's, how we started raising business. How we finish. Locked On Celtics pod, home of the winners. Peace.
Hey there, welcome back to the Locked On Celtics podcast. So happy that you are making this your first listen every day. Thank you. Really do appreciate you everydayers. New listeners, welcome aboard. Hope you're enjoying the show. Hope you subscribe whenever, wherever you get your podcast. Watch the show on YouTube. Get into that comment section. If you're new to the show, I'm John Corrales, beat writer for Boston Sports Journal. I've been covering this team for about 20 years. I've written a couple of Celtics books, including Built Different, which is celebrating Banner 18. You can get a personalized signed copy at johncorrales.com. Get it mailed to you, $30, and it's yours at johncorrales.com. U.S. shipping, international stuff, it's a little bit more expensive. Hey, today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start this NFL season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Later on, I'm going to answer a mailbag question, just one, in the last segment about the Indiana series, which Joe Mazzulla brought up on this podcast a few weeks ago. And I got the question. I thought it was kind of interesting in the tone of this podcast, which is about rivals in the New York Knicks. The first couple of segments here about the New York Knicks, because they traded for Karl-Anthony Towns. I did a quick 1-minute reaction. I wrote a reaction on Boston Sports Journal, but I wanted to get into it a little bit more on the podcast. I didn't think it rose to the occasion of the bonus podcast over the weekend. I want to just save it for today. If you're new, by the way, this is a 5-day-a-week podcast. I will be doing post-game podcasts after every game, except preseason, like the preseason game on like Friday, unless something big happens. I'm going to do both Abu Dhabi games in one podcast for Monday. Again, unless something huge happens. So maybe I'll do a quick little bonus one. I'm not sure, but I'm going to do full reaction on the Monday podcast. Just set your expectations, but during the regular season, post game every time. So the Knicks gave up Randall and DiVincenzo. They get Karl-Anthony Towns. Friday night, it's 11 o'clock at night, and we're sitting there like just got back from dinner, had a couple of drinks, just chilling out. All of a sudden, my phone starts buzzing like crazy, and it's like, what's going on here? Weird time for a trade, but once again, here we are with a pre-training camp, like just before training camp trade where things are getting blown up at the last minute. This seems to be kind of a trend in the NBA. But this kind of sets the stage for why I think this is so complicated for the New York Knicks and the Celtics and all of that, because if this had happened in July, June, whenever, it might have felt a little bit different, but let's just set the baseline here. The Knicks with Mitchell Robinson, they had a center that they built their team, their whole team identity kind of needed a center like Mitchell Robinson. So he's a screen setter. He'll roll. He's certainly not going to pop. He just kind of fits in what the Knicks are trying to do. And I'm sure they're getting ready to go into training camp. Like, they've spent the whole summer preparing, and they come into training camp with this group, right? They just got Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, healthy, full season with him, healthy, hopefully for them. And they're building towards this thing. And you find out that Robinson's not going to be back until maybe January, and the hole at center seems like really big. Defensively, they are kind of screwed without Robinson, so they needed a center. Well, at this particular time of year, there's not a ton out there. There was some talk about Robert Williams, which, just on a personal level, I was kind of glad that it wasn't Robert Williams. I didn't want to see Robert Williams in a Knicks uniform, but I also want to see Robert Williams playing basketball and whatever, like if he's healthy. I just want to see him actually have a good career. But that didn't work out. Karl-Anthony Towns was available in Minnesota because Minnesota's trying to save money. They're a mess. The Minnesota Timberwolves are a complete mess. They ownership issues. They're fighting. We don't know how that's going to get resolved, who the owner is going to be, where they're trying to spend their money. That team was going to get super expensive. This deal supposedly saves them like $30 million, whatever. You can argue they got to the Western Conference Finals with Karl-Anthony Towns. I'm going to argue that it was, yes, he helped them get to the Western Conference Finals. But also there were games where it was like, hey, you might not want to have him out there. So the Knicks had a situation. They weren't sure about Julius Randle, that whole extension thing. They weren't sure if they wanted to pay him. They kind of traded problems or potential problems or kind of this whatever. It wasn't exactly like a fit type of thing. Everybody's confused. I listened to Locked On Knicks. They were like, yeah, I guess. So the Knicks made the move. Leon Rose is a New Jersey guy. Karl-Anthony Towns is a New Jersey guy. Leon Rose was Karl-Anthony Towns' agent. He believes in Towns more than anybody. Towns and Tibbs didn't have the best relationship in Minnesota. So what's going to give there? But the reason why I brought up the proximity to training camp is this isn't just hey, we got to figure out how to integrate this guy. For example, Drew Holiday trade, where it was, last second, but he kind of slid into what Marcus Smart did. He's a perimeter guy. He wasn't the centerpiece of the Celtics offense or defensive plan, right? Porzingis is the centerpiece. No pun intended. He is the center/centerpiece. And Jayson and Jaylen are the engines of this team. And, Derek White is, Mr. Intangibles and does everything. And Holiday just solidified everything. But yeah, he still had to get up to speed. Towns is he changes everything in New York. And this is where I have my most skepticism. And why I went through the whole preamble there. The Knicks were stuck. They got a guy that Leon Rose believes in, but did they get a guy that fit? And did they get a guy they can't just slide him in? He does not play anywhere near the same as Robinson did, as Isaiah Hartenstein did. He plays differently. Theoretically, in the half court, he's going to make them better. You get over the half court line, you set a defense, you set your offense against the set defense. He is going to help create space. Theoretically, if this is NBA 2K, you plug him in, and there's no kind of like adjustment period. You just plug him in and you play. But in the NBA, Brunson has to get used to playing with this guy who is a high-level scorer, a high-level offensive player who's going to need a lot of touches, but plays, he gets the ball different in a different spot. Like the game plan, everything that they've prepared for, everything that they've built, suddenly it's, the spacing is completely different. This guy slides into the number 2 spot. He does not play like Julius Randle plays. He plays differently. Your center is going to be in a different spot on the floor. How do you figure that out? It could be a short adjustment period. It could be a big adjustment period. Theoretically, yes, he makes them better offensively. He brings them into a modern NBA offense. If I'm looking at should the Celtics fear the Knicks more, I'm not so sure that this change can be executed as quickly as it needs to be, where the Celtics look at it and go, oh God, oh no, how do we guard this? So number one reason why I don't think the Celtics should fear this is I think this might set the Knicks back in the early going as they try to figure each other out. I'll continue this because I don't think this helps the Knicks at all defensively. I don't think this gives them an advantage at all defensively. And still offensively, there are questions. I'll get to that next. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. If you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check the latest stats, play-by-play, and a lot more, all on the same page where you make your bets. So you don't have to go to maybe a second phone or a second screen or a third screen or a fourth screen. It's all on one screen in your hand, right? The same place where you make your bets. So you can, maybe if you want to do something in game, you feel good about it, check those stats, make your bet. All you got to do is place a $5 bet right now, and you get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Doesn't matter what happens to that $5 bet. So if you had the Patriots and bet against them, against the 49ers, that looked really good because the 49ers covered that 10-point spread plus. So if that was where you put your $5, great, good for you. But it didn't matter because you still get those $200 in bonus bets guaranteed over at FanDuel. Make sure you're using their tools to help you gamble responsibly. Set your budget, set your limits over there at FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Thank you for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Go check out Locked On NBA. I host that show on Wednesdays with Jake Madison, rotating hosts all week long, covering the whole league. When the games start, we're going to be diving deep into the games every night, so it's a great way to keep up with everything that's going on in the league. So make sure you're adding Locked On NBA, that feed, as your second listen after Locked On Celtics. So why I don't think the Celtics should fear the Knicks any more than before. I think this might separate the Knicks a little bit from the rest of the pack, maybe a little bit. But when the Celtics match up, first of all, the Celtics do have the opportunity to guard the Knicks no matter how they played. Karl-Anthony Towns obviously stretches the floor. Fully healthy, if they have Porzingis, then he's going to be pulled away. But you don't have to guard Towns with Porzingis. This is the beauty of the Celtics. You can guard Towns with Drew Holiday. Holiday can go guard Towns, and if what's the worst thing that happens there? That Towns says, "Oh well, I'm just going to take Holiday into the post." Like, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Please do that. Right? Like, please look at that matchup and say, "Ooh, Mouse in the house. I'm going to take him down low," because yeah, maybe Karl-Anthony Towns will score in the post a few times. He's not going to score every time, and that's 2-pointers. And the Celtics are going to come down and try to take advantage of Towns defensively, put him in every pick and roll, and dare him to guard out on the perimeter. He's not going to be able to do it. They need him to be a rim protector. And then this is another reason why I'm not fully sold. I don't know what the Knicks are going to do exactly with Karl-Anthony Towns. This is a big question for me. Are they going to let Karl-Anthony Towns be himself? If that's the case, then everybody else has to adjust. And that means Brunson and Anunoby and Josh Hart, and some of those guys are going to be playing roles that they didn't expect coming into this season. So those guys are all going to have to adjust, and there's going to be an adjustment on everybody's part anyway. But how big is an adjustment is going to be? Or is Tom Thibodeau going to be like, this was how we won with all of these guys. We just traded for a different center who has a certain skill set offensively. We'll make sure we use that, but we still want him to be an offensive rebounder because we love offensive rebounds, and it's a big part of our offense. We still need him to be a shot blocker, and so because we love to get out into transition. So he needs to do this. And that means he's going to need to be closer to the basket, which means he's not going to have as high a volume as from three as he normally does. If that's how Tibbs goes after it, then you're not using Cat to his full capability. So part of why I'm like, yeah, I don't think that this is going to bother the Celtics all that much. Not only can they take advantage of Towns in a number of ways, they have the guys that can guard Towns in a number of ways. I don't know that the Knicks are fully going to use him the way he likes to be used. And is with Tibbs and Towns already having a history of like butting heads, is that going to create some sort of tension there? Is this going to upset things in New York? There is a potential for this to kind of be like problematic in a way. My feeling is we're going to watch the Knicks and be like, something is just off. This is just a little off. And Tibbs loves his tough guys. And I've never once looked at Towns and said, boy, that's a tough guy. I don't think has anybody. I don't think he's ever been accused of being the toughest guy on the floor. But that's who the Knicks are. The Knicks love their gritty, grimy. They fought like they should have lost a ton of those playoff games that they won, or the games that they lost, they should have been blown out. They had grit, they had determination. I don't see that kind of thing out of Towns. I think he's a little bit on the soft side, right? He's a finesse player. He's not a grit and grind type of guy. He's not going to get in there and mix it up. And I don't know if he's going to be able to handle the workload. So the Celtics can throw Drew Holiday at him. And like, if Towns tries to put the ball on the floor on the perimeter, he's going to get that thing taken from him. He's not going to have space to be comfortable. So the Celtics have creative ways where they can defend the Knicks, and that will keep Porzingis, or when they don't have Porzingis on opening night, but the next few games against the Knicks, they might have Porzingis. So that's only one matchup. But if they have Horford back there, they have ways where Tatum can rotate and protect the rim. If the big gets pulled away because of Towns, they have the potential to cover for each other. There are ways the Celtics defensively, I still feel like they can handle Towns, where I still don't think the Knicks can handle the Celtics. And worse, there's no real, like, are they really going to, if they keep Mitchell Robinson, are they going to play Robinson over Towns against the Celtics because they're going to need a rim protector? Are they going to play him more than Towns? How's that going to work? I don't know. I have so many questions from the New York side. And when I look at that Boston-New York matchup, yeah, maybe the Knicks cut a few games off the Boston lead, right? Or maybe the Knicks are the number 1 seed, and the Celtics, because of rest and maybe a couple of injuries that they didn't have last season, maybe they drop to 2 or 3. I still look at the Knicks. If the Celtics have to go into Madison Square Garden for game 1 against that Knicks team, the way it looks right now, the way I see it, I still think the Celtics win that game, and I still think the Celtics win that series. I'm not worried about home court against the Knicks. Not. I feel like they'll win. They'll win 50 plus games. They could be the 2 seed. The Celtics should be the top seed, provided good health and good luck. They should be the top seed. I can see New York and Philly kind of jockeying 2 and 3. Maybe it'll be close. Maybe it'll come down to a tiebreaker. Milwaukee, after the report that Chris Middleton not going to be ready for camp, that's a real blow. I think Milwaukee's going to struggle a little bit more. Even if Giannis is great and even if Dame figures it out, they need Middleton. And if he's not ready for a while, then I'm going to put them as 4th in this group of 4, and they're going to have to really fight. But I still take Boston. Towns, it's a nice pickup. It saps their depth a little bit, so I want to see what's next. If they have to roll with him for extended minutes, I don't trust his conditioning. I don't trust his toughness. And I don't trust New York either because of Tom Thibodeau's stubbornness, and also because they're about to start training camp and they already have a plan that they're going to have to scrap. I don't fully trust them to use Towns the right way. I just don't trust it. I feel like Tibbs is going to try to get Towns to do some stuff that he doesn't like, and that's going to cause some problems. And I think that's obviously going to be in Boston's favor. So that's me talking for 20 minutes to say, no, the Celtics should not be more afraid of the Knicks after the Karl-Anthony Towns trade. I see the Knicks as a little bit better in the regular season and not a bigger threat to the Boston Celtics. Let's revisit the Indiana series. I got a mailbag question. I thought it was interesting considering that Joe Mazzulla made news on this podcast when he talked about that series. Let's talk about that when we come back. Today's show is brought to you by Gametime, the place to go for those last-minute tickets. You know that they're going to make it easy for you because Gametime Picks is going to filter out the fluff. So you use that Gametime Picks feature. You only get the incredible deals on great seats. You save a lot of time. You're going to save yourself some money because they've got the best guarantee in the business. They will make sure that you have the lowest price, or they give you 110% of the difference credited to you if you find those same tickets somewhere else for less. You get the panoramic seat view so you can see what you're getting into right away before you buy the tickets. And when you turn on the all-in pricing, there's no surprise fees at checkout. The price you see is what you pay. Your purchase is covered with the most flexible customer service policy in the ticketing industry over at Gametime. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets. I use Gametime a lot. You should just download the Gametime app, create your account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA. On top of everything, you're going to get $20 off your first purchase. So check that out. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Gametime today. What time is it? Gametime. Thanks for making Locked On Celtics your first listen every day. Really appreciate you being here. Subscribe. Get into that comment section on YouTube. Let me know what you're thinking about this trade for Karl-Anthony Towns and how the Celtics should react to that. Tell me if you agree or disagree. Hey, shout out, by the way, Connecticut Sun. Big win over Minnesota starting their semifinal series. Taking home court advantage. Big one. That's great. Looking for potentially their first championship. This would be a hell of a year to do it after the Celtics win a championship. So go Connecticut Sun. All right, I got a mailbag question. It came in from Sean. He said, I'd really like to hear you discuss the Indiana series again. Joe touched on it being the hardest, even though it was a sweep. And I agree so much. We all reasonably moved on so fast because it was off to the finals. Looking at it again, I think their pace, shooting, and defense gave us trouble and was the closest thing to a mold on how to play us this upcoming season. Well, Sean, let's take a few minutes to talk about that series. The reason why it was so difficult, and I'm going to tie this to the New York thing. The Pacers were unpredictable, and they played fast, and they had a bunch of good shooters and willing shooters. So when you play like the Knicks And you can look at these guys and say, okay, they have this. This is how they score, right? Brunson, the Karl-Anthony Towns, picking pops. You know there's a formula for them to score. You know there's a formula for the Milwaukee Bucks. You know there's a formula for the Dallas Mavericks. You knew all of the things that they had done well. When it came to the Mavs, we knew that those centers were critical. Their rolling to the basket, the lob threat was critical to unleashing the full potential of Luka Doncic. So the Celtics had a game plan. Take these things away, and it's like the Jenga tower. You know that when you pull a certain thing, it's going to fall. Like they get you to pull a certain thing, and they're good at, the Celtics are a great defensive team. They're good at making these adjustments and putting together this game plan to take away certain things and take away your strengths. Well, there is no formula for the Indiana Pacers. They just move the ball, move themselves, play fast, play with a great pace, take the open shots when they're there, and they had the potential to get hot at any time. We saw different guys, Nemhard, got crazy. People looking like, when did he, like, this is why Jaylen was like, these guys turned into Michael Bleep and Jordan out there. And there's nothing you can do. It's very difficult when your only defense is try to stay in front of very fast players. If you can't anticipate, it's problematic, right? So are we looking at a mold, a blueprint to beating the Celtics? Yes and no, because yes, that's a great blueprint for winning in general in the NBA. It's organized chaos. It's just, okay, today's going to be, Halliburton, and tomorrow it's going to be Turner, and the next day it's going to be Nesmith. And if you can't leave one, you can't figure out who to focus on. If you can't do that, then it's that randomness is like, yeah, that's a very good formula, because everybody's willing to do the hard stuff, and everybody's willing to put in that work, and everybody's willing. No one's saying, oh, it's my turn. There's no heliocentricity there. But it's not a formula, because how many teams in the league have that? How many teams in the league play like that? Certainly not the Knicks, right? Like, we're just talking about the Knicks, and it's very Jalen Brunson heavy offense. He is going to have the ball. So one way to beat the Knicks is, well, if you've got length, you throw it at Brunson and you double him and you get the ball out of his hands. That's one way to play the Knicks. Or you just play him with one long player and you say, all right, I'm going to dare you to drive, and we'll settle for your twos. And if you can make those tough twos, great. But we're not going to, we're going to make your shot as difficult as possible. We're going to take away your passing lanes and go for it. Have fun. That's the game plan, right? I gave the game plan for beating the Mavericks, and the Celtics pretty much followed that game plan. It's, as much as I'd like to sit here and be like, it's because I'm brilliant. No, it's because it was obvious. I can't give myself that much credit. It was an obvious game plan. And when it's that obvious and you're that good, then you can execute that game plan, and they won pretty easily. The game plan for beating Indiana, I don't know. No one knows. Hope they miss. So that's why. And in this 3 heavy league, Missoula ball and all of that, it's the shooting variance is the key to everything. When you've got 2 teams that are willing to put up 53 pointers apiece, there's a possibility that one day Derek White's not hitting, Jaylen Brown's not hitting, but Nembhard and Neesmith are, and it's like, oh God, we can't shake these guys. So that was the series, and so the Celtics won because the Pacers weren't good enough to finish games. That was an Achilles heel for them all year long last season. They were not a good fourth quarter team. They made mistakes because the fourth quarter demands a little bit of structure. And that's, I say this a million times, huge believer in this. Your biggest strength is your biggest weakness. And their biggest strength is their randomness and the chaos. But random chaos doesn't finish games. Structure does. Structure and execution does. And that's where you need a little bit of, okay, set play, this is how we're going to go. And that's part of why the Pacers kind of struggled as much as they did in that, closing those games. It's why the Celtics were able to come back and win, because they've got great structure. But that type of unpredictability is incredibly difficult to guard in the NBA. And that makes the Pacers dangerous. But they have to have that mentality and be willing to do that over and over again. So if we're looking ahead to this season, the Pacers, are they dangerous? Yeah, they're a dangerous team. Are they as good as the top 4 teams? Maybe not. But hey, maybe they are. They're so unpredictable in so many ways that if they can kind of harness that a little bit more, then they can figure out how to close some of these games, and maybe they move into the top 4. It's not out of the question. It's not. And if Halliburton's healthy all year long, that's a big deal. That can really help them. So that's their strength, and that's why the Celtics kind of struggled a little bit. But luckily for Boston, there's most of these other teams have really, really good players, which forces the structure. It forces, you have to go through Giannis. You have to go through Embiid and Paul George and Tyrese Maxey. You have to go through, Jalen Brunson and now Karl-Anthony Towns. You have to go through those guys. You have to go through Jimmy Butler when he's healthy in Miami. And while you say you have to go through Tyrese Halliburton, he's the point guard, and he's willing to be part of the chaos. That changes things. So we'll see where the Pacers go. They could be, maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Maybe the Pacers are the most dangerous team for the Boston Celtics for all of these reasons. Maybe they're the ones that the Celtics should fear, because if invariably they're going to face the Pacers again in the playoffs, because whenever there's a possibility of Boston facing Indiana in the playoffs, it always works out where they meet. They've never been able to avoid Indiana in the playoffs. I don't care how unlikely, if there's a 0.5% chance of that happening, somehow that 0.5% chance keeps happening. And I should just get an apartment in Indiana at this point rather than staying in hotels. That's how often these guys play. And if they do, that could be the most dangerous series again for the Celtics, because they can take away the strengths of any other team. Thank you for that question, Sean. So the Celtics are on their way to Abu Dhabi. So no practices or anything like that. So I will do full mailbag, and then we'll get into a little bit more preseason stuff as the week goes on. And then again, the Celtics play Friday. The Celtics play Sunday, Friday at noon Eastern, Sunday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So what I'll do is I don't anticipate doing a podcast after the Friday game unless something big happens. And what I'll do is on Sunday after the game, I'll just drop an early Monday episode. I won't wait till at night. After I'm done with my writing, I'll do a podcast, and that'll cover both games in Abu Dhabi, the whole preseason. And then we'll wait for them to come back and have some fun. So lots of podcasting here. Make sure you're subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Get into that comment section on YouTube. Let me know what you're thinking. If you're not a subscriber, hop in there, man. Let's get that, click on that so you get the show dropped directly to your device. And then I would love it if you shared the podcast and tell everybody they should be listening to and watching the Locked On Celtics podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day.